They all come from a toxic, anaerobic, acidic internal milieu in the body. Why do you think so many more people are getting cancer? What is it? Second leading cause of death. What do you think?
The toxicities in the environment, foods that are fairly toxic and stress, I think were big factors in ways of diet, in mind-body work, in lifestyle. It was either, learn or die.
Ready to live at the higher vibrations, where peace, love, joy, and good health are the daily standard? That's what this show is all about. Welcome to Vibe. And here's your host, Robin Openshaw.
Hey everyone, it's Robin Openshaw. Welcome back to the Vibe Show. And today I'm going to talk to someone from a place I really love. You know that I recommend the Swiss Mountain Clinic if you have an ill family member, and you can always go find that on the Green Smoothie Girl page, why I love Swiss Mountain Clinic. Not only would I send my own family member there, or I would get on the plane myself and just go check in for a couple of months if I found myself with a serious diagnosis. Swiss Mountain Clinic is in the southern part of Switzerland, right near the Italian border. If you go for a hike right outside the front door, you'll be saying buongiorno to everyone, because Italian is the language spoken in that quarter of Switzerland. But my tour all over the world studying non-toxic cancer treatment, and I ended up learning a lot more than I bargained for. My other favorite place in the United States is in the south of Florida, a beautiful place called Hippocrates Health Institute. And there's a guy named Tom Fisher that I'm interviewing today, who is a registered nurse there, but he's a certified health educator. Hippocrates has been around for decades, and they actually have certifications of their education programs, and you can go there for I think it's like the Living Light Institute or something like that. You can learn all about raw plant-based lifestyle for healing. It really is the way to go if you're ill. The very first thing I would do if I became ill is I'd just do 100% raw with lots of juicing. But Tom has studied around the world with a lot of different integrative practitioners and researchers, including he's studied with the Paracelsus leadership and the two Paracelsus clinics in Switzerland, very famous. One of them is now the Swiss Mountain Clinic that I take people to. So when people say they can't travel, I always tell them, hey, go to Hippocrates Institute. It's not cheap, but you can go for a seminar. They do different kinds of seminars there, or you can just go check in and be a patient there for a few weeks. So Tom has a really interesting experience in that he was diagnosed with cancer over 20 years ago, and it was he had a very dire prognosis. We'll have him tell us about it, but obviously 20 years later, he's doing really well and really passionate about what he does because of his own personal experience. But he has spent 14,000 clinical hours working one-on-one with people all over the globe who come to Hippocrates. Hey, so welcome to the Vibe Show, Nurse Tom.
Thank you very, very much. Glad to be here.
I think it was your sister who reached out to me, who follows me online and says, you really should interview my brother. And I'm like, you know what? Every couple of years, someone brings Nurse Tom up to me. So I want to ask about how you ended up being director of clinical education at Hippocrates. But first, I should mention that I don't know if you know this, but I went all over the world studying what people do to treat cancer non-toxically, alternatives to cancer treatment all over the world. I don't know if you've encountered any of my content on that, but 20 different clinics. And I don't think you and I met.
Not sure if we met in person when you were around here. It's, so many people, maybe it's hard to say.
Yeah, I've stayed at Hippocrates twice, and I've done a couple of speaking tours with your boss, Brian Clement, and
Sure.
and I always tell people, when people come to me and say, "What do you think of this clinic? What do you think of that clinic?" I don't go online and diss any clinics that I didn't think too highly of, but I did go to some clinics I did not think too highly of, and I'm pretty known for taking people every summer to my favorite of the 20 clinics, and have developed a long and deep relationship with. It's now called the Swiss Mountain Clinic, but it used to be one of the Paracelsus clinics.
Oh, yeah. I like Dr. Rao. Yep.
Yeah, and Dr. Rao sold it to one of his proteges, Dr. Petra Vihel, and her husband, um, quite a few years ago. I want to say 10 years ago. But I always tell them, and especially if people are like, I don't want to travel or I can't travel or whatever, I always say my second choice is Hippocrates Health Institute. And second choice is a kind of like, that's still really, really good because I was evaluating all these clinics from a lot of different angles, including the depth and the breadth of the treatments possible there. And so it's my favorite of any place I went in North America, hands down. Not cheap, but it's right up there with Swiss Mountain Clinic for being beautiful and a very, very well cultivated healing environment there. So just, let's hear a little bit about your story. First, I'd love to know, how is Hippocrates doing? Like, tell me what's happened there in the last 5 years since I was there last.
Doing good. One of the things that we're always trying to do is to look at newer and better therapies to support the guests that come here. And so we're using newer electromagnetic therapies that we didn't have in the past. For example, there's one called CAMRA, which uses ultrasound, laser magnetism, LED light therapy. And what's kind of unique about it, it has a whole app. So you can work on specific health conditions to really support people. We have now, Liquivita has partnered with us, which is an IV therapy, outsourced medical. So they can do various therapies and treatments. So some of the newer things that they're doing are things like peptide therapy. So peptides are basically signaling molecules that help your body do things, but to help support if there's more help needed. For example, insulin is a peptide, which will of course help our sugar to get into the cells. But there they can use peptides for your immune system, for the neurological system. And of course, we're doing things like hormonal therapies to support various IV therapies, and also different mind-body therapies, I think, than we've had in the past. So they're always looking at things and ways to help really support the healing process and to do that in a quicker way.
So you yourself, maybe you came in contact with Hippocrates when you were a cancer patient, or tell us a little bit about your own cancer story, like how long ago it was, what kind of cancer, what stage?
Yeah, absolutely. So, back in 1999, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And, I was a young guy, I was 29. I figured, I'm healthy. I was a former collegiate athlete, strong. And, but my diet was awful, standard American diet and stress. And I believe I had some toxic exposures as well from past work that I did.
Tell us a little bit about what your diet was.
My diet was consistently large amounts of meat, animal proteins, chicken, some fish. I would have carbohydrates in the way of chips and crackers, and then lots of desserts and candy and soda, as well as alcohol. So really a recipe for disaster, but that was, largely what I was consuming for, many years. And then it led to that situation, and what really, fueled me was, I did do some conventional therapies, did about 6 months worth of chemo, which, knocked cancer back a bit, but I wasn't out of the woods. And I had to really learn on my own then. It was either, learn or die. So I did a tremendous amount of research too, like yourself, and in looking what I can do to support myself in ways of diet, in mind-body work, in supplements, in lifestyle, and continue to still learn and grow with, learning from various integrative doctors. And so it's been an interesting journey, but it kind of led me to Hippocrates. And, I actually originally found a lecture it was teaching how to do the raw and living foods over the course of a weekend. And keynote speaker was Brian Clement, our director. And, essentially it made sense to me that, there was, foods and things that can help support your immune system. A lot of people have used it and helped them get well. It's good research behind a lot of the nutrients. So I started to incorporate those foods into my life, and I started to feel better. I started to get my energy back, and even my memory was affected too by the chemo. I had that chemo brain, hard time remembering anything. And I also, back then, before, I did anything with Hippocrates, I was given about a 40% chance of living 5 years. So, that was a big motivator. And when I started changing my lifestyle, my diet, it started helping a lot. And then I came to Hippocrates as well, did their program. And I also did the health educator program and literally quit my job to do that. I was working at that point as a nurse in a medical surgical oncology unit. And I didn't really feel I was helping those people the way that I needed to. So I left that. I did the training here. And not long after that, I got the job here. I've been here now for 10 years. And for me, it's been rewarding because I've seen people with all kinds of health conditions, and I've seen many people recover that unfortunately wouldn't have recovered in the hospital from what I've saw in a practice there. And now for myself, over 20 years, fully recovered from stage 4 cancer to the bone.
So the congratulations on that. It's just really exciting and really inspiring. And I'm sure that you enjoy telling that story to people who are facing the big C diagnosis, because there's not a whole lot that's more terrifying. And you're 20 years past it. How the diet at Hippocrates is very austere. And not a lot of people are going to do that. Not a lot of people, even faced with, their very poor odds, are going to eat sprouts, greens, totally alkaline, no cooked food. And I'm a believer. I got my own health back, not eating quite that extreme, but I've eaten 60 to 80% raw, 95% or more plant-based for 20, 25 years now. So, now that you're well, and now that your risk of cancer is about the same as everybody else's out there, 20 years past it, how close do you stay to it? Like when you're not at the clinic eating there at the buffet, what are you, 60 to 80% raw, 95%? Are you totally vegan or?
Yeah, vegan. I try to, do at least 80 to 90% raw food in my diet. I do a little bit of cook because my wife is an amazing raw food and vegan chef. So, I will have, some of those things that are cooked, but very healthful though. And, I still use various supplements to support myself. And I try to maintain things using meditation as well, and exercise, especially aerobically, and just continue to cleanse with saunas and other techniques that I use periodically.
Okay, so what do you think your exposures were? What do you think your risk factors were? I mean, you said you're eating the worst of the bad in terms of standard American diet. You didn't mention any vegetables or fruits or legumes in there. You said
they were very few and far between back then.
Yep. Did you have some toxic exposures that you think predispose you? And maybe comment a little bit on what kind of exposures you see, since you're dealing with cancer patients in your work almost every day too.
Yeah. I mean, really, some of the research that's out there shows environmental toxins, in some cases, about 70-80% of the reason for a lot of the cancers out there. And, when I was a younger man working in summers or from college home, I would work for a township, but I would work in a couple areas of the township. I would work in landscaping, where I feel I was probably exposed to some of the chemicals they may have used there, possibly even Roundup. And I also worked in recycling and even refuse, where I was one of the guys on the back of the truck. And let me tell you, you're exposed to a lot of stuff there. I would literally, all we'd wear were, shorts and a t-shirt and gloves, maybe sunglasses. And I would come home and I would blow my nose after a day of work like that, and it would be black. in my nose. I would use a Q-tip in my ear and it would be black. So if you can imagine how much you're breathing in throughout a 6 to 8 hour day, what have you, we were doing some really nasty stuff. And I think that, along with really just foods that are fairly toxic as well, lots of sugar, which would be feeding that condition, and stress, I think were big factors for myself.
Why do you think so many more people are getting cancer? What is it, 1 in 2 men and more than 1 in 3 women now? Second leading cause of death. What do you think has changed?
I think, really a few things actually. One, I mentioned is the toxicities in the environment. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, if they're not using some type of water filtration, are really setting themselves up for higher levels of toxins through things like excess fluorides and chloramines and pesticides and other waste that can get past, unfortunately, our municipal water systems. Air has become more so of an issue in certain areas than others, but that's another factor. And then even in our foods as well, a lot of people, even for example, fish, through bioaccumulation, these heavy metals and other toxins can build up in them. And then when we're consuming them, especially on a long-term basis, these will build up in the system and weaken our immune system. The other thing that a lot of people don't think about, and you probably know about it though, is the dental health plays a big factor in cancer. Because if one has, for example, a root canal, in many cases, those root canals can go bad over time, and bad meaning they can become an infection. That infection can go systemic in the body and really affect our immune system in not a great way. Beyond that, the dental the teeth have what they call dental meridians. So in Chinese medicine, we have different meridians that will affect the body energetically. So each tooth with that affects different organs and systems. And with some of the people that I've studied with, the meridians, if there's a root canal and a cancer, that meridian will normally be going directly to where that cancer is. And then the other thing is unresolved emotional conflicts or stress are very biggies, and really the mind body, in my opinion, is more important than food. And also even biofilms are an issue. So biofilms are a waste product of cancer and other pathogens, bacteria, viruses, and they build up in the body, and they can actually cover or protect cancer cells so the immune system doesn't know it's there. And until we clean up that waste, it's harder to really, get rid of more of the cancer cells. So there's a few factors there, I think, that can become real issues for people.
So what kinds of therapies do you use at the clinic? And you can talk about cancer, but you're welcome to go outside of cancer, because not everybody there at the clinic, that's not necessarily everybody's diagnosis. There are people there for a wide variety of illnesses, and that's because, they all come from a toxic, anaerobic, acidic, internal milieu in the body that was fed by all those things you said, stress and a lousy diet and the chemical exposures. But, you could talk specifically about cancer or mention some other things. What are the therapies that you think are the most exciting and the most like needle movers of what you do at Hippocrates?
Yeah, absolutely. So, really here, in the mind-body sense, we have a few different mind-body therapies. We use one more specifically for cancer, which is called One Brain. And One Brain, they call it an applied kinesiology. So they're essentially testing the body musculature based upon questions. And these questions are going into regression therapy. But I can't tell you how many people I've had in consults that said, wow, I had an amazing breakthrough from that, because I learned that this situation in my life was really affecting me. And I didn't even realize it because it was when I was, 10 or something like that. So this therapy, I found it to be really effective, not even beyond cancer. It's helpful for really anyone that has any condition. The other thing too that I like a lot, more specific for cancer, but it can be helpful for other conditions, is the some of the IV therapies, specifically the vitamin C, because a lot of people may not realize that vitamin C at lower levels of milligrams is more of an antioxidant and protecting against free radical damage in the body that can age us quicker or damage DNA. But at high levels in IV, for example, 50 grams or more, then it becomes a pro-oxidant. So pro-oxidants are anti-cancer. For example, chemotherapy is a pro-oxidant. And so what's interesting is, cancer cells really love sugar, as we know, and in a lot of the research, uptake at least 3 times or more than a healthy cell. So when we take in that vitamin C, it turns into, basically the body sees it as sugar, goes into the cell and turns into hydrogen peroxide. And normal cells have catalase enzymes that get rid of that excess hydrogen peroxide, but not cancerous cells. So it helps to destroy the cell, helps with pain, helps with the immune system as well. And a lot of times we'll follow that up with hyperbaric oxygen, which allows the nutrient to get deeper into the cell. And in our hyperbaric, it's a little bit different. We put a QRS machine in, and a QRS machine is an electromagnetic machine that opens up the circulation, microcirculation, and allows the body to detoxify better. And so they get a dual benefit doing that. And so that really is an excellent therapy I like a lot. And really detoxification becomes important because, like I mentioned, so many factors of environmental exposure. So we use infrared saunas, and infrared saunas are much better than a regular sauna to get toxins out of the adipose tissue or fat, allow us to get rid of heavy metals and other waste and toxins. We also utilize colon hydrotherapy, which helps us to eliminate from the large intestine waste and backup waste. Even a lot of the people that I've studied with in integrative medicine feel that even healthy people have about 10 pounds of fermenting waste in the gut. So when we can start to eliminate that, we support more optimal health.
10 pounds of fermenting, uneliminated garbage in your GI tract. Is there any evidence of that? That is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And a part of that is because of undigested food. The undigested foods come, a lot of that from poor food choices, kind of like I used to, or bad food combining. And so it basically ferments and rots in the small intestine. And then we start getting even nutritional deficiencies from that because we're not getting the nutrients. And that's why people like to keep eating and eating, and they eat more and more, and they get heavier and heavier, but they're actually malnourished. They're not getting the minerals and things. Minerals, we like sea vegetables here. We also use other minerals from other things like algae, but even Linus Pauling, what he found, he's one of the top integrative doctors, well-known vitamin C therapy and extending people's lives with that. But he found that minerals are the root cause, or deficiencies of minerals are the root cause of all chronic disease. So minerals become a real problem, and an acidic diet will use more minerals and it'll use up the calcium first, and then it starts using other minerals and weakens the structure of the body. So it's kind of an interesting thing that these factors can play a part. But there's some of the things that I like in the speeding up the healing, but the energy medicine, they're really focusing on more so now, and to get people to really start using these devices more often and get that good therapeutic effect from it too.
There's so many people who claim they have the original Rife device. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because energy medicine, my only problem with it, of course, I love it. I wrote a book called Vibe, all about vibrational frequency. Did a real deep dive to write that book into all things energetic. And by the way, you mentioned earlier that you think that our response to stressors or some metaphysical things are actually even more important than what we eat. And I have slowly arrived at that same conclusion. I believe that too. I think people that really become victim-y and do not forgive and react as if everything's a big thing and can't recognize the small things from the big things, just sort of a response to stressors in their life, I think they might actually be putting themselves at more risk than people who eat garbage food. And I don't think I could prove that. I don't know if anybody can, but I think there's more and more of us coming to that conclusion. But what do you think works in the world of energy medicine? It's just kind of a big wild west right now with people saying, well, I'm an energy healer. Well, what are your credentials? Well, they don't have any, but what devices or what would you have people do who really want to explore energy medicine?
Well, different devices work better for different conditions. So, for example, we have a device here called H-Wave. So H-Wave is a medical device, which is pulsed electromagnetic therapy, but where it really shines is in conditions of pain, in things like neuropathy, and also helping with circulation and lymph movage as well. A lot of times with an illness, most people's lymphatics are unfortunately stagnant. So that would be, for something like that. Now, when it's more of a versatile thing, when we're looking at condition specific, then I'd look at more of something like that Calmer device I mentioned, which uses that ultrasound, laser magnetism, LED light therapy. And then we can work on things like migraines. Again, we can work on pain, but we can work on even organs and systems to support them because it helps to stimulate the mitochondria, the energy powerhouse of the cell, to help support that healing process. And then if we want something that's more, shall we say, reducing stress or supporting sleep, then we use a device called NewCalm. And NewCalm, even through Harvard research, what they found in about 7 minutes, it takes us from a sympathetic or stress state to parasympathetic. So, we heal, of course, in the parasympathetic state. And a half an hour of that therapy on the body is like 2 hours of restful sleep. So I can't tell you how many people I see every week that say, you know what, Tom, I don't sleep well. I haven't slept well in years. And that becomes a real problem because they're not getting that restful sleep to help them heal. And so, different ones will work better for different things. You mentioned Rife as well. And, it's unfortunate, his history, but essentially what he did was he found certain frequencies that work with different, shall we say, organ systems, even parasites and things like that. And I think those types of things can be effective, but, it depends on, again, the certain machine that it is, and so in some cases, the practitioner as well, how well trained they are.
Okay, so I got to ask you about wheatgrass because it's such a big part of the treatment there. And you go to these little huts, if it's still the same way it was last time I was there, you go to these little huts and you can just make your own, and you're supposed to do, I don't know what the recommendation is, but a few shots a day. I got to tell you, I will eat just about anything. I'll drink just about anything if it's good for me. And how things taste is not my barometer for whether I'll eat it or not. But man, I have a hard time with wheatgrass juice. And not everybody does. I had my youngest son, who's super picky eater. He actually likes the taste of it. But tell everybody why you think wheatgrass juice has been so important as part of the protocol for I believe everyone who goes to Hippocrates, and what's so amazing about it, and what did Anne Wigmore discover with it? Tell us that story.
Yeah, well, Anne was more instinctual. She's our founder, Anne Wigmore. And, she helped to heal her own cancer, using foods, whole foods and the raw foods and supplements. But The original way that she found out that wheatgrass was something that we would want to use is she would use animals in the beginning, cats and dogs, and she used different forms of grasses. She would watch, where would they go most often to eat? Because animals are instinctual and they know normally what's going to be best. And they would go to the hard winter wheat. So Anne was like, wow, this is amazing. So this looks like it could be something to consider. And then she, found these a gentleman that read the Essenes scrolls, which are essentially, they state the words of Jesus that showed in the religious writings that they use grasses such as wheatgrass to help people's health. So she felt this was like a revelation and like, I'm really in the right direction with this. And then we brought in Viktoras Kulvinskas, who was also one of the founders, and he did more of the research on the wheatgrass. And what they found that, it is a true superfood. It is a complete protein, having all the amino acids that we need with that. And it has vitamins A, D, E, and K, as well as a B complex, not necessarily enough B12 to give us, if we're on a vegan diet, but it also has very good levels of chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is what, of course, is helping to alkalize us, but chlorophyll is also antifungal, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory, and even from some of the research, anti-cancer. So, we like that wheatgrass a lot, and also having phytonutrients. So phytonutrients are essentially non-nutritive substances, but they're highly anti-cancer, and they do other good things like lower our bad cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol. So wheatgrass, we found that, we don't only just use it orally, we'll use it topically as well as a poultice for people if they have different skin conditions. We'll use it in scalp massages for people to help cleanse their scalp and to help with hair and hair growth. We use it even as an implant or rectally to support, because we absorb that way, and we'll absorb it more systemically. So we use it a lot of different ways to really support the body, and we've seen nice results with it. So it's definitely been one of the things we've loved, but we continue to find new things that are excellent as well.
Well, it's so nice to connect with you, since I think I missed meeting you in person when I went to Hippocrates. Tell everyone about your book, what's it about, and where they can follow you.
Well, you know what? I'm having a website that's going up really soon, and that's called Nurse Tom Beat Cancer. And I am working on a book. That one's not fully out yet, but the book should be called Living Raw Solutions. And I'm going to have different types of health conditions that people can support themselves in a natural way. And if people want to connect with me, they can reach me at my email, and that's tfisher, Fisher, at Hippocrates, INST.org.
So Hippocrates Institute, but short, HippocratesInst.org. Well, thank you for your great work that you do there. I've heard good things about you over the years, and thank you for sharing your inspiring story with us today.
Absolutely, absolutely.